session portion of the meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of Government Code Section 54953, Subdivision E, and the recommendation of the Ventura County Health Officer issued September 21st, 2021, following social distancing recommendations. I'm sorry, I kind of turning my head to look at another screen. I'm all out of ink, so I wasn't able to print out my agenda. So with that, let's move ahead with roll call. Madam Clerk, could you please take roll call?
Member Bouchard.
Here.
Member Perez.
Here.
Alternate Member Martinez.
Present.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
And just letting the record reflect that Chair Dudley is absent.
Thank you very much. We will now hear public comments. If there's anybody in line to offer a public comment, please raise your hand so we can call on you. You will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody online?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you. With that, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Spalding, would you like to read the closed session items into the record?
Absolutely, Chair Hernandez. It is, I apologize, I'm finishing a meeting here. There's one closed session item on the agenda tonight. It is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. The case name is OPV Coalition et al. Versus Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency et al. And that is a Santa Barbara Superior Court case. The case number is stated in the agenda item for this item.
Okay. Member Burchard, anybody else also? This is the time to disclose any conflicts of interest. Anybody besides Member Burchard? Okay, Member Burchard, go ahead.
At this time, I'm going to excuse myself from participating in the closed session based on a potential conflict of interest with my current employer in Pleasant Valley County Water District. So I will not be participating in this closed session item. And I don't know, Georgiana, are you able to place me in the waiting room or should I log back in later? How do you want me to proceed?
Mr. Peretz will place you in the waiting room.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay, we'll just give it a few minutes.
While we're waiting, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Mr. Caddy, I can hear you. How about everybody else?
Yes. Sounds good.
Great. Charles, do you want to let us know when we're ready to move forward with our closed session? Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I'd like to call to order the regular portion of the Port Hueneme Water Agency regular meeting. The time is now 4:17. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of Government Code Section 54953, Subdivision E, and the recommendation of the Ventura County Health Officer issued September 21st, 2021, following social distancing recommendations. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Member Bouchard,
Here.
Member Perez,
Here.
Member Jacobson. Okay.
Here.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Here.
and just let the record reflect that Chair Dudley is absent.
Okay, very good. Do we have any public comments, Madam Clerk?
There are no public comments.
Okay. And Mr. Attorney, Mr. Spalding, can you please provide the closed session report?
Absolutely, Vice Chair Hernandez. The closed session, there is reportable action. Authority was given to legal counsel to defend the civil action groundwater adjudication as referenced in the agenda item, with member Bouchard abstaining and with member Martinez sitting in his alternate capacity.
Okay, thank you. All right, this gets us to agenda approval. You have the agenda before you. Unless there's any changes, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve and a second, please.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
if I may, I just wanted to note for both members of the agency and for the public, we do have 2 new staff members for which this is their first meeting. So I wanted to introduce our interim Public Works Director, Mark Watkins, and our new General Water Manager, Dennis Martinez. I just wanted to introduce those 2 individuals and let you know that for the foreseeable future, they will be here with us at PHWA meetings.
Very good. Welcome. Welcome, Mr. Watkins and Mr. Martinez.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the agenda and a second?
I'll
We have,
second.
okay. Roll call vote, please.
Member
Voice vote?
Perez,
Yes.
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Vice Chair, I'm missing somebody. No, just 3 of you. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have no presentation, so we're now at consent agenda. We will now consider items on the consent agenda. There's 2 items, I believe, minutes and register of disbursements. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay,
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Member Perez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Other Chair Dudley absent.
Okay, thank you. We have no public hearings and we do have 2 business items, I believe, 3 business items. So let's start with item number 3, the Brackish Water Reclamation Demonstration Facility Operational Report. And I'd like to introduce our new General Manager, Water General Manager, Dennis Martinez. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair. Good afternoon, Board. Just like to introduce myself, Dennis Martinez. Been with the city for 19 years, and I'm just really excited to jump in and work with you all here in the near future. So today I'll be presenting the operational report for the month of December 2022. So for the month of December, the average daily demand was about 2.4 million gallons per day, which was slightly down from the month before, November 2022, where the number was 2.9 million gallons, and also down from the previous year, where we were at 3.1 million gallons. As for the silt density index, so these readings range between 0.2 and 1.0, and with the average being 0.55. And of that demand, United Water accounted for 90% of that, approximately, and then Cayugas accounted for the other 9%. Now for the allocation update. So our United allocation annually is 3,657 acre feet per year. And we used, at the end of December, we used 3,194 acre feet, which accounted for about 87% of our allocation. As for the Cayugas water supply, we used 701 acre feet for the year of 2022, which accounted for about 47% of our allocation. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Martinez? Member Perez?
I do. It's probably a silly question, but I'm learning about all of this. So what happens when there's allocation left over? Where does that go? What do we do with the leftover allocation, if anything?
I'm still so new to this. I couldn't give you an exact answer on that.
Member
So,
Burchard, maybe you can.
I would have to come back to the board with that answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Member Burchard, did you want to comment or ask a question?
Well, I have two comments. One, I think and it's kind of twofold to what I was going to say. It addresses Ms. Perez's comment. Allocation that is unused is carried over through the GMA for specific rules. They only allow 100%, but you can only use up to 50%. The reality is it's just really strange wording in the GMA allocation ordinance. The reality is you can carry up to 50% of your total balance over to the following year, but then they say the first groundwater you pump in the following year is always going to be carryover balance. So you can really never achieve the 100%. It's just odd math, but that's what happens with it. We have a little bit of a unique situation in PHWA in that the allocation is actually held at United, not directly by PHWA. It's sub-allocation and held at trust. So which brings me to another question that I would like to ask that I've asked multiple times, and I know we've got new staff members here, so maybe I'll ask for it to be presented in a future agenda. Right now, we're accounting for calendar year allocation totals. The Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency operates on a water year. So those which is October 1st to September 30th. I would like just as part of that presentation, so we can judge where we're at in that water year, carryover balances for the allocation or the use data to be presented in both a water year and calendar year if you'd want to, but the water year is kind of more important to me in addressing the question of where we at in the balance of carryover or potential penalty.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and thank you, Mr. Bouchard, for your explanation.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing up that issue again. I don't know that anybody's ever responded to you, but I don't know the feasibility of changing our calendar to the water year, or if staff has looked into that. Mark, Mr. Watkins, you have any ideas about that?
Well, no, I appreciate Mr. Bouchard asking for that on a future agenda. We're happy to look into that. We will look into it, see what the feasibility is, and be happy to report back at a future meeting.
Okay. Sounds okay, Member Bouchard?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else to report, Mr. Martinez?
No, that was it for today. That was it. Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
No, Madam Vice Chair.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second, please?
Move to approve. You beat me to it. I'll second.
Member Perez,
Yes.
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
and Debly absent. Motion passes 3-0-0-1.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to get a Water Agency audit report from Ms. Lupe Acero. This is for fiscal year 2021. Hello, Ms. Acero. Thank you for being here today. You have the floor. And you're muted.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Good afternoon or good evening. I have a short presentation in regards to the financial statements Georgiana or Charles, can you guys put it up?
You should be co-host, so if you have access to it, you can display it.
I can share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Can you put it on full screen so it can be larger, a little bit larger for us? You can click, there's all the way at the bottom next to the, I usually use that one, it's that little movie picture. Yeah, to the next one over to your right. Yeah, the next one.
This
No,
one?
the other
This
the other
one?
direction. Oh, there we go.
This
Great.
one? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So I believe everybody received a copy of the financial statements, and the financial statements are for the fiscal year of 2022, which we just ended. And I just wanted to share the audit opinion, which we received the non-qualified opinion, which is the most common and desirable opinion, and basically stating that the auditor conducted the financial review of PHWA and that their statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's really what all these bullet points are saying. They went through and tested the internal controls and took samples of the revenues and expenditures, and they issued an unmodified, unqualified opinion. The next slide, I wanted to bring up a footnote that is on the footnote of the financial statements. And I think this came up last meeting when the budget was approved. There was a question, so I wanted to address this. There was a question about the benefits and taxes dollar amount for fiscal year 2022 being higher than the wages. And this goes back to what we in accounting is GASB 68, which basically requires government entities to recognize additional items as pension expense on the financial statements. So basically the auditors go through a calculation every year and they determine the net pension liability gap difference from the prior reporting period. And so that portion for 2022 was $195,000 that was booked to PHWA, and that is rolling up in that benefit taxes line item. And that's the reason that it looks like that line item is higher than the wages, which it is. And we probably should reflect the detail of that to show the 195. But the 195,000 relates only to fiscal year 2022. So every year the auditors, the city auditors, I should say, when they prepare the audit before they finalize their report, they go through this calculation and they determine what is the net pension liability for the city. And then that gap, the difference between what it was left the previous reporting period, it's an adjustment and then it gets allocated to all of the governmental and the enterprise funds. So again, that's the fiscal year 22 adjustment. And then what the footnote I have here, which is on the financials, which I wanted to touch on, which we probably need another meeting to discuss this in more details. But this is on the financials because this is a liability of PHWA, which relates to an audit adjustment in fiscal year 2020. When the auditors performed their calculation, they had a retroactive adjustment for pension and OPEB, other employment benefits. And this was for all of the enterprise funds. So each of the enterprise funds had a pretty significant adjustment. And the portion related to Fund 443 was, as you can see here, $808,000 related to pension and almost $128,000 related to OPEB. And so the combination of the two is $936,000. And so what happens at the end of each fiscal year, we take a look at the Water Fund 443 and any, if we, based on the revenue that was collected, if there's a net profit or a net loss that gets distributed out at the end of the year. This amount has not, because it was such a significant amount that it's still sitting on the books of Fund 443. It's something that I had discussed with Don, and we were planning to bring that forward to the board and talk about a plan moving forward on how PHWA, how we address this over. My proposal was to try to get this amount funded in the next couple of years, and I don't know what that looks like, but I'm certainly open to setting up another meeting and having further discussion on this component. But these were the only two slides I have. If there are any questions specifically to the financials, I can go through that.
Yes, Mr. Bouchard, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I understood this particular note to the financials. So Fund 443 is the Port Hueneme Water Agency Fund, not the City Water Fund, of which a portion of this is then allocated to PHWA. So this entire $936,000 is an unfunded liability for the Port Hueneme Water Agency, in simple terms?
This is correct. This is in Fund 443, which gets all transferred to PHWA.
And you stated that this unfunded liability has not been accounted for or addressed in previous year's audits or budgets. Is that correct as well?
It's yes. It's two components to it. There was the allocation that was being allocated to the enterprise funds in the past was incorrect. And so this was a retroactive adjustment to bring that allocation retro to the beginning of the audit year. So it was a retro adjustment to properly allocate the pension expense to the enterprise funds. The OPEB had not been allocated to enterprise funds in the past. And so they were not receiving an allocation for OPEB pension expense or liability.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I would sure appreciate the opportunity to understand this a little more. I know that it seems odd to me. Gatsby's been around for a little while, that we didn't pick it up, and then a retroactive reallocation of funds from certain enterprises of the city over to the PHWA. I would just like to understand it. It seems a little odd to me. And then the way the PHWA is staffed and using city staff, there may be certain years that the allocation of full-time equivalents becomes higher or management staff a little less. However that works, and I believe OPEB is a long-term calculation, and so to come in and say in 2020 that a liability that has continued to accrue vis-a-vis the city is now redistributed from historical accruals, redistributed across the board to PHWA. I would just like to know what the year was that we chose. How did that all happen? And
Sure.
I'm not saying it's not right. I'm just trying to understand it.
Sure. And the Gatsby 68 it's new, meaning that it went into effect in 2015. And so it was requiring, again, for cities, governmental agencies to report that net pension difference every year. So every year, to your point, we'll have an adjustment. And there's all these factors, right, that the auditors take into account in making this adjustment based on the actuarial reports. So it's longevity, years of service, new people coming in, rate of return. So we can go through that in more detail. But that's basically what's driving that adjustment every year. And we'll continue to have that adjustment. And it could go the other way. But because it wasn't properly allocated to enterprise funds, that's the biggest chunk of this amount is back in 2020.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Acero. Mr. Jacobson? Hello.
Yes, yeah, hello. I'm in the same boat as Member Bouchard. If we could get a second meeting to discuss this, unsure how this affects ratepayers. The Navy is a part of that in the agreements, and so unsure how this would roll into changing rates or adjusting rates, which is something that I would have to get multiple Navy staff involved with. So if we can make an action item to set up a separate meeting, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at a separate meeting or not part of a regular board meeting for this to be discussed? Is that the desire of the board? Member Bouchard, what's your preference?
Well, I guess I don't want to hold up. I don't know, is there any impact to city staff if we hold off on approving or accepting the audit? I mean, not that we're not going to, I personally am not bright enough to go and change the financial statements. I just want to understand this piece, but is there an issue if the board was to wait till the next board meeting and have a study session on this to adopt this audit?
Ms. Acero, do you have an answer for that?
Currently it's not impacting any of the audited numbers, so that the financials at all. It's a footnote which I had to disclose because it's something that's outstanding. So I think it's just really a footnote right now on the financials. It's not included in the financials. I think for me, going forward, if I would like to have a meeting to discuss this in more detail, and then perhaps if we need to revise the budget to incorporate some of these expenses in there, which I don't think they're in the budget now, going forward. But it doesn't impact the audited financials. It's a footnote on the financials.
Okay. With that being said, what's the pleasure of the board? Do you want them? Well, let's see. Let's first of all hear any other comments. Are there any other comments on this discussion or item?
Yeah, just to add on, I concur that, this is something that potentially just has to be rectified in the future. So, if we could just be involved, the Navy be involved in that discussion when it does happen. Unsure with the change in PHWA leadership, the new city manager, new water manager, if everyone's up to speed on some of what the former city manager was doing or city water manager was doing. So just looking forward to a further discussion and offline if needed. Over.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay. Any other comments from our members? So the question is, do we want to receive and file this report? If so, I'll take a motion in a second, or do you want to table it until this issue is cleared up?
Sounds like
clarified.
Sounds like tabling it would be a good idea and having another meeting.
So, Vice Chair, if I may, just to kind of add on to what Director Acero said, the action tonight is to receive and file the audit finding. And I don't think that any future discussion is going to change the audit document itself, but we certainly want to develop a plan and return to this committee to discuss any potential impacts to the budget and any, if any, impacts to rates. So that's definitely something on our radar for a future agenda item, but it shouldn't preclude the committee from considering taking action to receive and file the audit.
Okay, then I'll motion to receive and file.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. And can I speak to it really quick before we vote on it?
Sure.
Okay. I would just like to suggest when we bring it back, sometimes these things are difficult. Those in the financial end that do this work, it's pretty clear to them. I'd like to have a little extra time for us to be able to ask questions and kind of dig in so that I have a full understanding too of what's going on. And so maybe I'm just kind of saying what ex officio member Jacobson said is, a quick 20-minute presentation isn't going to get me there to understand it. I'm not that bright. So having a little extra time would be my request. And with that, I'll support the receive and file motion.
Okay, very good. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Perez,
Yes.
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Debbie absent, 301, motion approved.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 5, renewal and reconsideration of remote meetings pursuant to Government Code Section 5493, Section E. Mr. Spalding, you're on.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hernandez. So once again, we are making the determination as to whether or not PHWA wants to continue in remote meetings or whether or not wants to go back in person under AB 361, which requires the agency to make said determination every 30 days. Currently, Governor Newsom's March 4th, 2022 state of emergency remains in effect with a proposed expiration of February 28th, 2023. Given that, the agency would need to make one of two findings, and that's that the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person, or that state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. Currently, the March 4th, 2020 state of emergency remains in effect and is not set to expire for at least another month. And the Ventura Public Health Officer's September 21st, 2021 letter stating recommendation for social distancing has not been rescinded to my knowledge. Accordingly, this agency or this board would be justified in holding that February's meeting be conducted remotely. To give you an idea as to the state of infection in the county, the most recent data I have for the month of January, starting at January 5th, is showing approximately an average daily infection rate of 100 per day, with 130 being the spike. Most days are hanging out right around 90 to 80. And so what we've seen is we've seen a little bit of a decline since I wrote this staff report, which was 125 positive cases a day, with the highest being 129. The individual daily high was 130, but the trend appears to be heading downward. But with that said, the agency the board is within its rights to determine that the February meeting be held remotely by making the finding that a local official is still recommending social distancing and the state of emergency remains in effect.
Okay. All right. Are there any comments or questions? What's the board's pleasure? Do we want to continue remote until we can no longer do that? Or just for the next 30 days, next meeting, we'll decide?
I have
again.
a question. When we do go in person, where will our meetings be in theory? At the city?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
They've always been in council chambers.
I've always been Zoom with this board, so I have no idea.
Good question.
Okay. I am whatever the board feels. I have no preference either way, since I'll be there anyway.
Mr. Bouchard, I sense that you're wanting to say something.
I've been the bystander and saying I'll do what the rest of the board wants to do. I'm prepared to return back to in-person meetings, but if we want to make the finding, I'm comfortable supporting that to support the other members of the board. So yeah, I'm leaving it up to you two.
Okay. Mr. Jacobson, did you have anything? Any
No,
comments?
I'm in the same boat.
Okay.
I'm whatever the board feels. So I believe this goes into your vote. If however you feel is the way we'll go.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to go back in person. The only reason I wouldn't want to go is just really for my own convenience, which is not really part of the reasoning that we should be using. So if everybody is okay with coming back in person next month, I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second. I'm the same way. I don't have a real legitimate reason, just to...
Yeah. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, may we have a vote? Roll call vote.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Perez,
Yes.
Member Bouchard,
Yes.
doubly absent, 301, motion approved.
Okay. Excellent. All right. This next item is agency member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. I think we have one future agenda item related to the audit footnote. Anybody else have an agenda?
We had the other agenda item that Council Board Member Bouchard asked about in regards to calendar year and water year and how we're reporting out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. The other one that we wanted to discuss were our kind of a comprehensive strategy, and I wasn't sure, Member Bouchard, how you wanted to do that kind of strategic planning for the year. Did you have any ideas on how we might go about doing this?
Well, I think I'm going to say this. We've got a couple of new staff members. I think that with General Manager Martinez from the Beach District, they can bring them up to date with the staff change. And I have every bit of confidence that Mr. Watkins' leadership and Mr. Martinez, both Mr. Martinez's, will have a chance to discuss where that's at and bring it back to us if that's fair. I don't want to, but it's in the meeting minutes. It's recorded. We were supposed to have a proposal back. I don't know if there's a different plan of attack on that now with the transition in staff. So, I don't want to beat a dead horse if we're moving in the right direction and we're still limping along.
Right. Okay. Mr. Jacobson?
Yeah, I just wanted to report I did get to visit the brackish water demonstration plant last fall. Just did a quick tour with the chief plant operator Theo there. Want to encourage the entire board and other staff to take that tour. You learn a lot about the strategic plan and about the planned maintenance when you do those tours. Understand about a little bit more about the operations as well. So just wanted to report that it was a really beneficial meeting. To see that plant in operation and understand a little bit more about some of the dynamics of those changes that are proposed in the planned maintenance reports. So just want to encourage the board members to set up a meeting or a tour if that is feasible. Over.
Mr. Jacobson, who will we reach out to do so?
I think Mr. Martinez, the water manager there, he can facilitate. The chief plant operator that we met with was Theo, and he's been a fantastic resource to understand the day-to-day operations, also the how operations has changed over the last decade. I'd be happy to join with you to put perspective in from the Navy point of view. But open that up for everybody.
I would concur, by the way, if you could coordinate that through Dennis Martinez, that'd be fantastic. And then if you do jump in a car together, he can show you a few other sites around town just to kind of complete the water tour. And that's absolutely well worth doing, and we'd be happy to schedule that at any time.
Is it better for us to reach out to you or for you to let us know what days work best?
Well,
Mr.
now that I
Gertrude.
know you're interested, I will write that down and we will reach out. We'll find a
Okay.
time. And if there's any other board members who want to just kind of raise their hand right now, we'd be happy to schedule and coordinate that.
I've had a tour. I had a tour years ago, but I'd like another one. It's been a while.
That's great. Always happy to show it, I'm sure. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
I'm just going to announce really quickly that if I miss the next meeting, it's not because we're in person. My daughter's giving birth to twins, and it may be right around that time, and I may not be here. So anyhow, I didn't want you guys to think I was bailing out after all that voting on whether we meet in person or Zoom.
Right, yeah. Your ears would be burning.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations and no problem. Understood.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, girl. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It's 4:52 p.m. and our next regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesday, February 21st at 4 p.m. in person.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
See you then.